everybody, welcome back. So in the previous video, we talked about hardiness zones, frost dates, and growing seasons. And that is a great place to start. The next thing that we really need to talk about is your soil. It's really important to know your soil type before you start gardening. There's 3 basic soil types. There is sand, silt, and clay. And ideally, you want a mixture of all 3 of these. If you look right here, this is the soil that we have in our yard. It is a heavy clay, and we just got about 2 inches of rain the other day. So you can see it is sticky and it doesn't even really break apart. It's very heavy and it holds a ton of water. It does not drain well, which is a downfall to clay soil. But a really positive thing about clay soil is because the water doesn't just drain right through it, it actually holds a lot of nutrients, which is a good thing. But clay soil can be really hard to work with, and you're gonna spend a ton of time trying to amend it and loosen it up. And when it rains, it's just gonna be a muddy mess. You're never gonna be able to get in the garden right after a rain, which is why we have chosen to do all of our gardening in these raised beds. Now let's take a look at the soil in one of our raised beds. As you can see, this is a bed where we have garlic planted, and I'm gonna dig up a handful. Now, our garden is just right next to the spot in the yard where I dug up that clay. So our garden also got 2 inches of rain. And look at this. It's wet, but it crumbles right apart. This soil, we have spent a lot of time trying to get our soil amended where it has really good tilth. It's nice and dark. It's very healthy soil. For us, it just made sense to have raised beds. Yes, it was a big investment of time and money getting the beds built and filling them, but the soil is just so much easier to work with. Planting is easier, weeding is easier. If we get a huge rain, it helps the water drain away and it doesn't flood or cause root rot issues. And we've just been very happy with it. And each soil type is going to have its own perks and its own challenges to work with. On the opposite of the spectrum from clay is sand. And sand, of course, is going to drain really, really well. The downfall of that, though, is as it runs through, it's gonna pull all of those nutrients right out along with the water. And you're gonna have the opposite problem from flooding. You're going to have drought issues where you can't keep things watered enough. And then silt is somewhere in there in the middle. Like I said, the best soil is going to be a combination of the 3 of those. The most simple way to tell what you're working with is to scoop some up, put it in a jar with water, shake it all up, and then let it settle out. If we did that with ours, it would stay murky for a very long time. Eventually the clay would all settle to the bottom. And I'm guessing that we would not have any layers of silt or sand in there either. But that's a really good way just to see what you're working with, and then you can make the best choice for your garden where you're at. There are a ton of resources online about soil, so I'm not going to go into too much more detail about that. Instead, we are going to switch and talk about soil pH. Now, when we're talking about pH, there's a scale from 0 to 14. 0 is the most acidic, 14 is the most basic or alkaline, and 7 is what we would call neutral, right in the middle. That's kind of where you want your garden to be, as close to neutral as possible. Most of your garden plants are going to thrive at a neutral pH right around 7, maybe a little bit on the more acidic side. I really don't know of any garden plants that are going to be happy with a pH of higher than maybe 7.5. That's about the highest that you would ever want it to be. But on the acidic side, especially things like blueberries and a lot of flowers would actually prefer a little bit of acidic soil. And I know blueberries, you could go down to like 5.5, maybe down to 4.5. but much more acidic than that, and you're just not going to have healthy plants. What the pH of the soil does is it affects the availability of certain nutrients. When the pH is too high, it limits the availability of copper, manganese, zinc, phosphorus, iron. But on the other side, if the soil is too acidic, it's going to cause the opposite problem. And some of those are actually going to be so readily available that they get into the plant in toxic amounts. So like manganese and aluminum can actually become too available for the plants. And again, similar to being too alkaline, too acidic of a soil can affect the availability of nutrients also. So you really want to try to go for that neutral soil pH. If you want to do soil testing, there are resources like a local extension office or an online laboratory, or there are kits that you can buy and do your own soil testing at home. Now, most of those are only going to talk about your NP and K, your nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which are the main nutrients, but there are some micronutrients that also need to be available. That growing things in your soil will tell you if your soil is healthy or not. You'll be able to see the results in your plants. If you have a deficiency, your plants will tell you. I like to add a lot of compost, a lot of organic matter to keep the tilth of the soil very loose so the roots can really take hold. If I notice a plant showing signs of a deficiency, I will make sure and amend that. It could be like a blood meal or a bone meal or something along those lines. Some plants are much heavier feeders on nitrogen or phosphorus or potassium. So I just want to make sure that my plants are growing in the healthiest soil that I can, but I don't go crazy with amendments. I kind of let the plants tell me what they need and go from there. Another sign of really good soil health is going to be worms. There's going to be rhizobia bacteria. So if you're growing legumes, you're going to see those bacteria start colonizing on the roots of your plants. That is an excellent thing that you want. The tilth is going to be really good. It will hold moisture, but it's also going to let the excess drain away, and your plants will grow very well and you will have a good harvest. Well, that right there is a lot of information. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump off of this video, and I will have a third video coming out where we are talking about garden location. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that I'm passing along some good information for you. Of course, if you have any questions for me, please make sure you leave them in the comments below, and I will see you on the next video.